August 3rd, that is the date circled in red on every general manager's calendar in Major League Baseball. The trade deadline, the moment when contenders go all in, pretenders cut their losses. And the entire landscape of the pennant race can shift in the span of a single afternoon. Now here is what I need you to understand right now. Today, we are closer to that deadline than we are to opening day. Think about that. The season that started with that Netflix game, the Yankees shutting out the Giants. The first ever pitch challenge system on a regular season stage. That moment is now further behind us than August 3rd is in front of us. The chess pieces are already moving. Front offices are already making calls. And if you are not paying attention to what is about to happen, you are going to wake up on August 4th completely confused about how the playoff picture just changed overnight. So today, right now, we are making 8 bold trade deadline predictions. 4 from the National League. 4 from the American League. Some of these will surprise you. Some of them are going to age beautifully. And at least one of them I promise you are going to want to remember you heard here first. Let's get into it. Let's start in San Francisco. And I want to be measured about how I say this because this is a proud franchise with a long and storied history. The Giants are in serious trouble, not just struggling through a rough patch trouble. Not tough schedule, they'll bounce back trouble. We are talking about a legitimate possibility, not a certainty, but a genuine, forecaster-acknowledged possibility that San Francisco finishes this season with more than 100 losses, which would be, for a franchise that has existed since the 1880s, an organizational first. Now, when teams reach this point, one of two things typically happens at the trade deadline. They either hold their breath, do nothing, and try to stay quiet, which is what the Giants did year after year during their mediocre 2022 through 2024 stretch. Or the front office makes bold, decisive moves under Buster Posey, who took over as president of baseball operations. The Giants have chosen a different path. Last summer, Posey moved on from established veterans, pulled off a blockbuster acquisition, and then, when things still didn't click, orchestrated a mid-sized deadline sell-off. This is not a front office that stands still. So here is what the selling market in San Francisco could look like this summer. Robbie Ray and Luis Ariz are both headed for free agency. Rental pieces on a struggling team, they will draw interest from buyers. Tyler Mahle, if he can return healthy from a hamstring strain and show even a few solid outings, becomes an attractive late rotation option for a contender. Harrison Bader is under contract through next year and has the kind of outfield versatility that playoff teams covet. He has suited up for multiple organizations in 3 of the last 4 seasons. At this point, getting traded is practically his off-season routine, but here is where the conversation gets genuinely interesting. Logan Webb, I want you to sit with this for a second. Webb has been San Francisco's ace, their undisputed #1 starter for the past 5 consecutive seasons. He is signed for 2 more years at a number that is, by current market standards, a bargain. He is the kind of arm that contending teams spend years trying to develop and rarely find available. If the Giants decide that, rather than treading water financially, they want to actually accelerate a rebuild, accumulate high-ceiling prospects, reload the system, flip the timeline, then Webb is the centerpiece of that conversation. The return package for a controllable, proven ace-caliber starter at age 28 would be historic. Is it going to happen? Bold prediction. Yes. San Francisco conducts the most significant fire sale in the National League. And if Webb gets moved, it will be the trade of the year in any sport. Here is a sentence I genuinely enjoy saying. The Chicago White Sox are legitimate trade deadline buyers. Stay with me, this is a franchise that has spent years in the basement of the American League Central. They lost historic numbers of games. They cleared the roster. They accumulated picks. They built the farm system. And this off-season, they made the clearest possible statement about their intentions by signing one of the most dangerous power hitters on the planet to a 2-year deal. That investment only makes sense if the plan is to win. Not someday, not eventually, now, and the American League Central is presenting a genuine opening. Detroit has been trending in the wrong direction. Kansas City's offense ranks near the bottom of the entire league. Cleveland, talented as they are historically, does not make major moves at the deadline. If there was ever a year for the White Sox to step on the accelerator in July, this is it. Here is what makes them uniquely positioned to do it. Their payroll flexibility is extraordinary. Their opening day payroll this season came in well below where this organization was spending just a few years ago. And crucially, they have almost no long-term financial commitments beyond next year. They have the money. They have the roster space. They have the window. I have said this multiple times over the past 2 months. And I will say it again today, if you are looking for a team that could shock the baseball world with an audacious deadline acquisition, a front-line starting pitcher, maybe a high-profile outfielder, the White Sox are the most logical landing spot that nobody is talking about. Their upcoming schedule includes a brutal stretch against the Phillies, Braves, Dodgers, and Yankees. If they survive it, if they are still in striking distance heading into late July, look for Chicago to make a statement. Bold prediction, the White Sox are the most aggressive buyers in the American League. 7 postseason appearances in 8 years. That is the Milwaukee Brewers' recent track record. One of the most consistent winning organizations in the National League. A franchise that develops pitching, plays defense, and finds ways to reach October almost every single year, and yet at the trade deadline, the Brewers have typically been cautious. Their splashiest summer transaction in recent memory was actually trading away Josh Hader. Selling, not buying, this summer. I think that changes. Here is why. The Brewers got eliminated in last year's NLCS by the Dodgers after scoring 4 total runs in the series. 4. They have the pitching, the defense, and the bullpen to compete with anyone. But when the offense goes quiet against elite starting pitching in October, it exposes a real gap in what this roster can do, and Milwaukee has the prospect capital to fill that gap. Their farm system is ranked among the top 3 in all of baseball right now. They have assets, they have flexibility, and they have a front office that has to look at last October and ask itself, what is different about this year? The answer they come up with could be an impact bat at third base or shortstop positions where they currently have genuine holes. Names worth monitoring include Isaac Paredes in Houston and Joe Ryan in Minnesota. Depending on how those club seasons unfold, the Brewers will be thoughtful about it. They are not going to gut the system. But bold prediction, Milwaukee makes the most significant deadline buy in franchise history this summer, and it involves a player whose name you already know. I want to be careful here because there are players on the Detroit Tigers roster who should not be moved under almost any circumstances. Kevin McGonigal, who has been electric. Riley Green, the young outfielder who is a franchise cornerstone. Dylan Dingler, who has quietly been one of the better catchers in the American League over the past 2 weeks. Those guys are staying. But beyond that, core, the Tigers are staring down a difficult reality. They have lost more than 20 of their last 25 games. The season has unraveled, and sitting on their roster is one of the most valuable trade commodities in all of Major League Baseball. Tarik Skubal, 2-time Cy Young Award winner, one of the most dominant starting pitchers of the current era, currently working his way back from elbow surgery, which means by the time he is healthy and available to contribute for a contending team, the deadline may still be weeks away. The question is no longer whether Detroit will explore his availability. The question is, who blinks first and submits an offer that makes sense for both sides? And based on everything coming out of the industry right now, I believe Skubal gets moved. Casey Mize currently on the injured list, but carrying a 2.27 ERA across 9 starts this year, is an impending free agent who will generate significant interest as a potential second or third starter for a playoff rotation. Gleyber Torres, when healthy, has the kind of on-base ability and positional flexibility that contending teams pay premium prices to acquire, and then there are the controllable pieces, multiple arms with 1 year of team control remaining. Pitchers who have value not just as rentals but as pieces with upside. Bold prediction. Detroit conducts the most comprehensive teardown of any American League team at this deadline and emerges with one of the most impressive prospect hauls we have seen from a mid-season sell-off in years. The Philadelphia Phillies are a fascinating case study in organizational honesty. On one hand, Bryce Harper, Kyle Schwarber, who, by the way, is leading the entire planet in home runs right now and is on pace for 60+, and Brandon Marsh are producing at a high level. The pitching has been solid. The Phillies are in the conversation, and they know it. On the other hand, look at the rest of that lineup. Beyond those 3 names, the production has been inconsistent at best. Several players who have been productive for Philadelphia in past seasons are simply not delivering those results right now. The Phillies are not a team that finds a way to be quiet at the trade deadline. That is not in their DNA under this front office. They already have one of the 4 highest payrolls in baseball. They are well beyond the competitive balance tax threshold. They have invested heavily in winning, and they will not sit on their hands in July. The area of focus? The outfield. Replacing the production gap in an outfield spot with a player who brings both offense and defensive value is the priority. Now, who that player is depends on how the next 6 weeks unfold across the league. It could be Jarren Duran from Boston, depending on where the Red Sox land. It could be Mickey Moniak from Colorado if he returns from his ankle injury and picks up where he left off. It could be Byron Buxton. It could be someone we haven't mentioned yet, but whoever ends up being the most impactful outfielder on the market this summer. Bold prediction: he will be wearing Phillies red by the time the deadline passes. The Boston Red Sox fired their manager in late April. They replaced him. Things have not dramatically improved. They are sitting with a losing record and occupying the bottom of the AL East standings, and yet they are 3 games from a wild card spot. That is the beauty of the American League this year. The field is genuinely open. No dominant force has separated itself, and Boston has a legitimate case for staying in buyer mode, especially with the expectation that Garrett, Crochet and Roman Anthony should both be returning from the injured list before the calendar turns to August. Here is another thing working in the Red Sox's favor at the deadline. They have almost nothing to sell. 3 players headed for unrestricted free agency, and none of them are the kinds of names that contending teams are calling about at midnight in late July. So they might as well try to improve. The infield is the clear target. The production from that group has been underwhelming all season. Luis Ariz, should San Francisco make him available, would immediately give Boston one of the best pure contact hitters in the game at second base, allowing Marcelo Mayer to slide to third. A clean upgrade with a clear positional logic. The bigger, bolder swing? CJ Abrams from Washington. The Nationals have been competitive this year, surprisingly so, but the forecasting models still have them well outside the playoff picture. If Washington eventually concedes that this is not their year, Abrams becomes one of the most coveted shortstops on the market. He has the athleticism, the on-base skills, and the defensive upside that contending teams desperately want. Bold prediction: Boston acquires at least 1 impact infield bat by the deadline, and it is a move that genuinely reshapes their ceiling for the stretch run. Here is a prediction that is going to feel uncomfortable for Mets fans. The New York Mets, one of the highest spending franchises in all of American sports right now, are going to have a quiet trade deadline. I know. Let me explain. In each of the past 3 summers, Steve Cohen's Mets have attacked the deadline with intent. They brought in relievers and outfielders last year chasing a pennant. They traded for multiple pitchers the summer before. And in 2023, when the roster was clearly not working, they unloaded Max Scherzer, Justin Verlander, and others in a complete reset. Each year, the path was clear. Either they were buyers with a lead to protect, sellers with nothing left to play for, or in a close enough wild card race to justify going all in. This year might not offer that clarity. The Mets' financial situation is eye-watering. Their total organizational commitment this season already exceeds $500 million. For every dollar they spend beyond the competitive balance tax threshold at their level, the effective cost is more than $2. That is not a theoretical concern. That is a number Steve Cohen's accountants think about daily. And selling? The problem there is the roster construction. The Mets have very few pieces that would generate significant return. Freddie Peralta and some quality left-handed relievers might draw interest, but most of their contracts are either too large or too problematic for other teams to absorb without major salary retention. Bold prediction: the Mets finished the trade deadline period having added nothing significant and moved nothing significant. They ride out the season with what they have hovering around 3 to 5 games from a playoff spot, too close to sell and not comfortable enough to spend. Mets fans, I know. The big finish. The boldest prediction on the board. Before I give it to you, let me acknowledge the names being thrown around in Tarik Skubal trade conversations. The Dodgers, the Yankees, the Blue Jays, the Padres. 4 organizations with money, prospect depth, and the kind of infrastructure that makes them logical frontrunners in any trade negotiation. And our prediction, the Seattle Mariners, is none of those 4 teams. Here is the case. Seattle went all in this past offseason. Major financial commitments, meaningful roster upgrades. This front office sent a clear message: the time is now. And critically, this is the final year of contracts for Randy Arozarena and JPP Crawford. Next year, Logan Gilbert enters his final season of team control. The Mariners' competitive window has a defined timeline, and everyone in that organization knows it. The farm system is the other piece of this puzzle. Seattle has maintained one of the most highly regarded minor league pipelines in baseball for several consecutive years. The prospect capital to make a blockbuster deal is not just present, it is exactly the kind of system another team would want to strip for a generational talent. Now, the money. Skubal's prorated cost, if acquired at the trade deadline, is approximately $9 million. $9 million for a two-time Cy Young winner at the peak of his abilities. The only reason to hesitate is Seattle's payroll, which is already at a franchise record, and the prospect of crossing the $200 million mark on total tax obligations. But here is the thing. I go back to what I said at the top. What is the point of building towards something if you flinch when the opportunity arrives? The Mariners have never won a World Series. The city has never experienced a title. The roster has the pieces to make a deep October run, but in last year's postseason, the absence of a true ace at the top of the rotation was the decisive factor in a playoff exit. Tarik Skubal solves that problem. Bold prediction: Seattle wins the Skubal sweepstakes. They make the largest deadline acquisition in franchise history. And when October arrives, they step into the American League Championship Series with the best starting pitcher in baseball at the top of their rotation. Let me bring it all home for you. 8 predictions. 8 storylines that are going to define the second half of this baseball season. The Giants may be heading toward a historic rebuild, and Logan Webb could be at the center of the biggest trade of the year. The White Sox are positioning themselves as the surprise buyers nobody saw coming. Milwaukee might finally cash in their prospect chips and make a genuine championship push. Detroit is sitting on a treasure chest of valuable assets and a rotation ace who could change the fortunes of whichever team lands him. In the National League, Philadelphia is going to find a way to upgrade that outfield they always do. Boston is shopping for infield production in a wide-open American League race. The Mets, for perhaps the first time in the Cohen era, may simply stand pat. And Seattle bold as it gets lands Tarik Skubal and announces themselves as World Series favorites. The deadline is August 3rd. We are already closer to that date than we are to opening day. Pay attention if you want to stay ahead of every move, every rumor, and every roster shakeup between now and the deadline. Make sure you are subscribed and have notifications turned on. We are going to be covering all of it. Every major deal, every blockbuster rumor, every franchise-altering moment, right here as it happens. We will see you then.